The reason I want to share a little bit about my own life and my evolution is not because I'm interested to share what my life has evolved into. I don't think that is important. But I really want to share how my ideas have evolved and why is it that I do what I do now. Right now I'm at the O.P. Jindal Global University and at the Jindal School of Government and Public Policy in particular. And within that school, I direct the Center for Complexity Economics, Applied Spirituality and Public Policy, in which we look for new insights into public policy making, which is based on complex adaptive systems thinking, applied spirituality, and quantum-like modeling, and derivatives thereof. So in order to let a wider audience understand how these ideas have evolved to the point at which they are now, I thought I'd share a little bit of the evolution of my own life incidents, so to speak. I was born in a little village called Triumph. The word Triumph is an interesting word for the name of a village, and that perhaps is the beginning of all of this. I grew up in this village, had a great childhood, and then went on to understand a little bit about religion and spirituality from my family. In our village, my family was well known as an Arya Samaj family, and I grew up in that kind of secular almost understanding of Hindu philosophy, not having too much mythology and idols and rituals and so on, but much more focused on the teaching of the Vedas and what the implications were for our lives. I went to high school in Guyana and then went on to university where I did a bachelor's degree in the natural sciences. And soon thereafter, an oil company, the Shell Oil Company, hired me to be their chemical sales representative. One of the chemicals I was promoting at the time was an aquatic herbicide which kills weeds in canals. And that was in order to clear the canals so barges taking sugarcane can easily pass through. I did not think about, the impacts on livelihoods of people who used to catch fish in these canals for their living and indeed for their food and nutrition. I was so carried away with the work I was doing, I thought that it had to be right. Anyway, the people started to ask me questions like that. So what about the impact on the canal, the ecosystem, the livelihoods of these people? And it then struck me that not only had I not thought about these things, I did not seem to care. And it bothered me that I did not care. And so that led, after a while, to my going on to pursue a degree in a master's degree in agriculture and soil science to begin to study and understand more deeply how these pesticides behave in the environment. That led me then subsequently to a PhD degree in this field, in which I also set up the first laboratory of its kind at the University of the West Indies at Mona, Jamaica, in which we now routinely give PhD degrees in environmental sciences, including in the area of pesticide chemistry, which is the area I advocated. Now, the reason I tell you this is to show that from starting out as someone working with industry and natural sciences, I began to develop an interest in the livelihoods of people. Soon after my work and my graduation, I led a regional environmental health institute where we were looking at pollution problems in the Caribbean, and then asked my bosses, who were ministers of health and the environment, for some time to go and understand the true nature and causes of the problems I was studying. You see, as a natural scientist, I concluded that I was really studying the symptoms of the problem. By the time the environment is polluted, there is little chance of correcting that unless you go back to the root cause, the source of where the problems were coming from. And those problems really originate from faulty economic and political decision making. And so I went off to do some advanced work at the International Institute for Sustainable Development in Winnipeg, Canada, in order to see and get a better grasp of the policy process. It was there that I hit upon the idea of looking at win-win policy options for both reducing poverty as well as conserving the environment. And that led to some groundbreaking work on sustainable livelihoods, which the UN then liked. The UN invited me to become their senior advisor and then their principal advisor on poverty and sustainable livelihoods. But I want to say one dramatic thing that occurred at this juncture. And that is, as I was working on environmental issues, I met Baba Virsa Singh Ji, who almost dramatically changed. Our conversations were led to profound changes in my life, both professionally and personally. It led to the point at which, from being an environmental scientist, I applied to do another PhD degree at one of our top schools, the University of Toronto, and got accepted even without, in economics, even without having a bachelor's degree in economics. And I also got accepted to become a program director at the International Institute, which latter offer I accepted. That, of course, made me think deeply of who I was as a person and what was the role, if any, of spiritual growth in human beings, understanding better who we truly are as humans. And so my growth as a natural scientist, as a social scientist, and as someone deeply interested in my own human experience. This was not about religion. It was about understanding who I was as a human being and how I experienced life and what was meaningful. So my search for meaning led in various ways, books written by people like Fridtjof Capra, who I had a great pleasure to meet and sit with in the gardens at Oxford at St. Anne's College, or reading books from Krishnamurti and many others on the limits of thought, all led me to a place which is quite different from where I started. I have referred to my life evolution as an unplanned life because I never planned. How could I have planned a life like this? It was so dramatic and so amazing. One thing led to the other one. It was evolving, and one I could see in my life that it was not a linear progression by any means of one career leading to another career, but rather it was a complex adaptive system, self-organizing, changing, impacting from many factors and processes around me, and then leading me to where I was. And so I developed, during my search for a theory of sustainable development, a great interest in complexity theory, in complex adaptive systems, of course in spirituality and what role that might have to play. I was trained, as I mentioned, as a natural scientist, and all of these started to blend and to meld in my own mind, in my own heart, and that produced a bunch of ideas with which I work now. So that's a little bit of my life's evolution, how I came to where I am now. I did mention I was born in Guyana. I have lived in St. Lucia, in Jamaica, in New York, in Winnipeg, now in Ottawa, in Canada, but I have been living. I came here as a student in India, as a Commonwealth scholar, and so it's now like a culmination of my life to be back in India and to be teaching, drawing from all of this evolution of thought, of ideas, and indeed of my full life.